Hello, my name is Caitlin Beige. I'm Content and Student Engagement Manager at BMES. Thank you for joining today's BME Leadership in Times of Disruption webinar, part of the BMES webinar series hosted by the Council of Chairs. Today, you'll hear from COC leaders and explore how academic biomedical engineering departments can thrive during periods of change, particularly amid shifts in research funding. Throughout the webinar, feel free to submit any questions you have in the Q&A box. We'll make sure to address them at the end of the session. We're thrilled to have an incredible lineup of speakers today. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to John Fisher to get us started.
Thanks so much, Caitlin, and welcome to everyone. We're excited to have you with us today. This is kind of a first for the Council of Chairs, having webinars, reaching out to the constituents of our field and BMES in particular. So we're really excited to get it started. Just a quick statement. This is being led by the Council of Chairs. So if you don't know, all the department chairs for the BME and BioE departments get together a couple times a year and talk about best practices and the growth and directions of the field. And so we're working for you, for our community, to try to build a better BioE and BME community. So the goal for today, for our webinar today, is really to have a conversation about some of the challenges our departments are undergoing now with the changing research landscape. And what we're really trying to hope to do is focus on actions that we can take in the face of these challenges. As Caitlin said, please go ahead and put in questions in the Q&A box, and I'll moderate the Q&A session after we hear from our panelists. So we have three outstanding panelists that come from the executive committee of the Council of Chairs. So we're going to hear from Dr. Ayman Elbaz from the University of Louisville, Dr. Jürgen Hahn from RPI, and Dr. Jennifer Kang Mueller from NJIT. No,
Stevens.
Stevens, from Stevens. I'm so sorry. Sorry about that, Jennifer.
Same time.
So we're really excited to have them each speaking today. Also want to thank BMES, the society, for hosting us on the platform here today, particularly John Falcione, the director of BMES, as well as Caitlin Beige for all the logistics to get us up and going. So with that, I think Jennifer's going to start us off, and I'll try to keep you all on time, somewhere around 12 minutes. So thank you so much.
So let me just start my, sorry. Oh, gosh. Well, thank you, John. As John said, I'm from Stevens Institute of Technology, which is located in Hoboken, New Jersey, and before we get to start, and I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to get together and really share some of ideas and concerns. But the full disclosure, I know I don't have the right answers or any answers that we're going to be talking about. But the presentations are really my thoughts on current situation and the things that I might try or trying within my department. And like I said, I haven't tried all of them yet, so don't ask if I've been successful. But I'm hoping that some of these could be also helpful, or at least spark some new ideas and things to try for your department as well. So I feel like every day I get up and there's new headline, right? A new headline pops up whether something is cutted or is stopped and things. And this is really generating anxiety, not just for myself as a department chair, but also on the faculty, the staff, and the students. And so this is really a challenging time for all of us. And I think having a conversation like this is actually really helpful for us to hopefully support each other and move forward. Obviously, that there's two big challenges. One is the research cut, a research funding cut, and other is, at least in my mind, is also graduate student enrollment. And this is something that I'll be sort of focusing more on my presentation. And so in May 2025, State Department data show that there's a 22% decrease in F1 visas compared to the previous May. And we all know that the visa insurance can really help us predict the fall enrollment, but it's not the full picture. And, we don't really know the full picture until about September. So there's that uncertainty for another month or so. But we are also hearing a lot of concern from our students, prospective students. In fact, we're hearing students who are committed to come to Stevens in the fall and keep asking, is that safe to go to be in US? And is that safe to actually join in and things like that? So given this uncertainty, financial planning has become very challenging for us. Probably until about like early July, we took a wait and see approach and trying to maintain as much flexibility as possible. But again, it's hard to predict what the budget will look like for the fall. During that time, we're hearing this. So there may be a budget cut. There may be a hiring freeze, and there may be a layoffs. In fact, actually, this result just got released yesterday. AMB conducted a survey in July and really asking these kind of questions. The survey was conducted in July, response received from 55 BME departments out of 114. So response rate about 50% is pretty good. Among them are 33 public institutions and 22 private institutions. And responding institutions are from 28 red states and 25 blue states, and 2 did not report. So I'm going to just share some key highlights. And I think some of you already got this results from email yesterday, and it's actually, I think, is posted on their website. Nothing surprising. 71 is but some of the key points I like to highlight. 71% of departments have experienced grant terminations since January 2025. These are really the mainly grants from NIH, NSF, USAID, and DoD. 45% of departments indicated that they plan to enroll fewer first-year graduate students in the fall. And this decrease in enrollment can range from 10 to almost 50% fewer students. Looks like, at least based on the survey, the private institutions reported greater financial loss than the public counterparts. The budget cuts were much higher at the private institution, about 68% compared to 39%. Hiring freezes, again, about 68% for the private compared to 24% in the public institution. And training and staff reduction were, again, higher for the private institution compared to the counterpart. AMB actually also did a very interesting analysis where they looked at the institution in blue states versus red states. And what they found, at least based on their survey, was that the blue states reported worse outcome for research and departmental funding, as well as student enrollment compared to the red states. But the impact is really also pronounced in red states as well. So if you look at this graph, the reduction in graduate student enrollment impact on ban of DEIA, as well as grant terminations, you can see the huge impact on really both blue and red states, but much more pronounced in blue states. And again, this information can be found on AMB website, and I encourage you guys to look at it, perhaps share with your fellow chairs and faculty as well. But going back to the story of the Stevens. So Stevens is a private institution. We got about just over 4,200 undergraduate students and about 4,200 graduate students. We have about 360 faculty and about 760 staff member. So what happened in the last few years is that right after COVID-19, there was a significant increase in student enrollment that really led us to grow much faster paced, that really increased the number of faculty and particularly staff. And now we're actually facing this sort of budget challenge, right? The decline in graduate student enrollment and the rising labor costs with all many of the staff and faculty we hired in the last several years is causing a significant budget challenge. So the thing that I'm going to talk today is, so instead of saying we're hearing, we're actually now going through really the budget cut, hiring freezes, and again, unfortunately, some of the layoffs for the staff. So one thing that I wanted to sort of share sort of things that we're trying to do in my department and hopefully things that we're trying and we would like to implement, how we can actually enhance the departmental operational efficiency with really fewer people and limited resources. So far, we don't have any layoffs within my department, but I know that it is actually occurring in other departments. So it will be challenging for us to really work across the different department as well as within the university. So one of the first thing is we are trying to do is focus on prioritizing key goals. We are re-evaluating and really prioritizing our departmental goals. And we have upcoming retreat that involves both faculty and staff, and really can identify what is our really the priorities, short-term goals versus long-term goals. And we're trying to, of course, make sure that these goals align with our broader Stevens mission and values. But this is something that we're definitely working on in our upcoming retreat. I think that one of the key challenge here is we need to make sure that key stakeholder, your faculty, your staff really must be involved in sort of setting up these goals and clearly communicating with them, to them, as well as giving regular update on our progress. I think it's going to be really important for us to kind of get through these tough times. Second thing that we're trying to do, and some of the things we sort of implemented in the last couple months, is improve and optimize communication. For staff, it was gotten to the point where we're getting emails, text messages, and team messages, and everything else in between. And it was getting to be a really inefficient way to communicate. And so really for us is to clearly define a preferred communication channels, particularly for the staff. And what we're trying to do is save the emails really for the announcements or longer conversations, and using Microsoft Teams for really quick updates and questions. So there's really no need for me to go check my emails, the text messages and Teams and so forth. And we have a defined way we can communicate better. And in fact, within Stevens, we're using Microsoft Teams for interdepartment communication for quick questions and updates. So it has been really helpful to really minimize different modality. I think a lot of people are also doing this. We're centralizing resources. Instead of having separate files and every computers and things like that, we are trying to utilize a shared drive to be able to share and collaborate. Although one of my biggest challenge is to really finding a right platform. A lot of people either use Google Drive versus the OneDrive or Dropbox. So really define what works for your department. In our case, we're actually using OneDrive as a main shared drive for sharing. And within the college and departments, we're using SharePoint, Microsoft SharePoint, to really share the institutional documents, and really has made us really know exactly where to go for answers. If someone asks a question, we know that where we can go in the SharePoint, we know which area that we can actually look for answers, really help us better communicate to our faculty and staff. And again, my goal is to really reduce the email overload for myself as a chair, but also on my staff as well. And the challenge of this could be that, if someone really not used to some of these new technology or process, could be actually resist to adapting. But once you them show that it can actually improve and really reduce some of their workload, I do think that this is a good way to motivate them. Third is the streamlining administrative process. And we've been really tasked to embrace sort of the more automated way to process data or doing our admin tasks. For example, scheduling tools, we can actually automate, and we've actually been trying to use calendars, an example we're using. We also look at Outlook, which we know what everyone's sort of schedule is sort of post, or at least their free time is, to scheduling it really help us minimizing going back and forth in emails. I haven't really done this, and we've been actually trying to implement this, is to really use a lot of these email platform to sort and prioritize emails so that we don't have to go through every junk email, but perhaps focus on the top priority emails and reduce email overload, which I think a lot of my staff are really feeling. And automated data entry and management is something that we as a Stevens really trying to embrace and trying to implement at every level. So that is something that we are trying to do. And the challenge is that, some staff may actually fear that they may get replaced by all these AI tools. And what I'm telling them is that this is really to help them and lessen their burden on sort of these automated mundane tasks. But we really do need to provide skills and technology to them. Without providing a skill sets and way for them to learn it, it's going to be hard to adapt.
So Jennifer, we have about a minute or two left.
Yep,
Thank
I'm almost done. Yep. So one of the final thing is to support well-being and empower faculty and staff. I think recognizing and celebrate each success is important. I'm a very big believer in creating a culture that's healthy, inclusive, and supportive. So celebrate individual and team accomplishment and encourage work-life balance. Again, invest in skill development. Technology-based skills, not something that all staff are familiar with. And I think that's really important for us to provide that support as well as emotional intelligence training as another example. So just to conclude my final thoughts, I think at this time we need to recognize the fear and anxiety in the current situation for our faculty, staff, and our students. But at the same time, I think we as department chairs, we also need to offer them hope and remind them the importance of our really work, the why we need to educate our students and usher them to the next, their career journey, but also important of our research, the way we're coming up with new treatments, advanced medical knowledge and improving quality of life is really all important. And having this platform like this where we can actually support each other and keep up the good work. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That's fantastic, kind of laying the groundwork as well as some of the operational aspects in our departments. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Han, and he'll keep us going here. And I'll just remind everybody, please put questions in the question and answer box that we'll address at the end of the talks. Off you go, Jürgen.
Okay. So I hope everybody can share this, see the screen. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about creating new revenue streams, in particular in the form of public-private partnerships. But before I go into this, I want to really recap a little bit the challenges that we are currently all facing. And the one thing I'm just going to tell you up front, nobody has it all figured out. We don't have it all figured out here at RPI either, okay? And I think that's always important to keep in mind. We are all facing a very challenging situation, and we'll figure out how to best manage this. So, I mean, if you kind of recap where we stand right now, universities are facing significant financial uncertainties, in particular when it comes to research funding. And this comes through multiple fronts. One thing is that we've all heard about cancellation of current grants. Some schools are more affected than others, but the majority of schools are affected in some form or another. On top of that, all of us have this uncertainty. What are the future budgets of the federal agencies going to look like? If you read news from one week to the other, it changes dramatically on what we're looking at, but clearly that there is significant uncertainty. That's the common denominator, and we have to figure out how to best manage this. There was a lot of discussion about the overhead, especially earlier in the spring. Right now, all of that is somewhat on hold. That doesn't mean it may not come back in one form or another, but because the holds are temporary right now. So it's certainly something that our universities have to keep in mind, and then figure out how can we make universities more resilient against any potential changes there. Something that is kind of flying under the radar, but it's also important. There are also discussions related to changing grant funding models. Like for example, with NIH, usually you get your money year by year. There's discussions if it's a 5-year grant, if they need to give you all the money in year one, which over a 5-year period may not make a big difference, but it makes a big difference on how many awards NIH can give in the next year if they suddenly have to come up with the money for all the new grants they're giving, which means it would be a lot fewer grants. Last word there hasn't been spoken yet, but that is part of the discussion and something to at least keep in mind. We know there were changes to fellowships. Some fellowship programs don't exist anymore. Others have given a lot fewer awards. So that means fewer students on fellowships. And Jennifer did a really good analysis on the graduate student side. We have issues with, can they get visas? Are they even willing to come given the uncertainties that we're dealing with? And clearly the quality of our graduate students has a major impact on the research that we can do. Okay. I'm probably forgetting a few things here, but these were the key ones that came to my mind when I put this together. Yeah. And the reality is, and I really want to emphasize this, there's a lot of challenges and nobody has a good answer. Okay. It's too early to say, hey, what is the best model here? In fact, I would argue probably that the model will vary dramatically from school to school. So even if somebody tells you this model worked great for them, okay, that's great. That doesn't necessarily mean it may be the best model for where you are at. So that requires a lot more discussion. Um, there are a few other things. This is more philosophical, and I said I may be completely wrong on this. Okay, but I think it's important to keep a few items in mind. Yeah, I mean, currently this current model for research is likely not going to work well in the near future. Okay, I think that one we can all agree on. My second point is a bit more controversial, but I have the feeling that we're not going to return just back to the old model that we had until last year. Yeah, I mean, so this idea of saying, well, maybe we can just get to the next 2, 3, 4 years and then everything's back to the old normal. I don't think that's going to work. Yeah, I do think that things are going to change. Yeah, they're not going to stay like they are or what is being discussed right now either, but we're likely going to end up with something in a few years that looks very different from what we had last year, but also different from what is being discussed now. And so we need to be agile in order to figure out, okay, what could the sustainable model look like? Yeah, that is neither just based upon what we had, nor based upon the current idea where, I mean, where basically the funding agencies would have relatively few research awards to give. Okay, so we may have to look at what are new models for funding research. Yeah, and as I just said, I do not believe there's one answer that will work for everyone. Okay, you're going to need a multi-pronged approach, many different approaches that you look at make certain contributions, and I also believe that this is going to be different from one school to another. Yeah. Now, I'm going to only, given that this is such a complex topic, so I have to pick something. Okay, so I've decided let's just look at public-private partnerships. Okay, and if you basically now, one of the advantages of looking at that topic is that if you look at the political landscape, there's really bipartisan support for academic institutions working with industry. I've not really heard anybody, at least not a lot of people thinking that this would be a bad model to support. The key question is just how do you go about this? Yeah. One item that is important there is that I mean, industry is not going to just make up for whatever shortfalls you have in federal funding. That's not a realistic view. Yeah, the reality is some of the work we do is just too fundamental to be of interest to industry. Doesn't mean it's not cool work, but industry is not going to fund that if they think that this is beyond what they ever would be interested in. Yeah, some other work may be of interest to them, but it's just at too early a stage. Okay, so we have to figure out, well, what kind of work could we be doing that's of interest to us, but that also is of enough interest to industry so that they may be willing to fund some of this. Yeah. The other thing is that yes, us producing PhDs is certainly always of interest to industry because they want to hire those. Yeah, but in general, they're not going to be interested in hiring or funding a project for 5 years to get one graduate out of this who may or may not work for them. Yeah, that's a time frame that industry usually does not look at. They look at much shorter time frames. Yeah, and so the educational component is great, but that by itself is likely not going to make all the difference. Now, you can talk to state and local governments and saying, how are they feeling about making up for any funding shortfalls from the federal level? One thing you're going to find is that the main thing your state government's always interested in, it's all about jobs. Okay, they're interested in, well, if you fund something here, are you going to create some jobs, or are you going to basically, will the jobs in your region be better, higher paying jobs? Yeah, so this is very different from when we're just writing a proposal saying, hey, this is good work, this will move the field forward. That is most likely not going to work. That argument's not going to work if you talk like to your state senator. So okay, so you're going to have to tie it to other things that they're interested in. Jobs is the main thing. I mean, they may be interested in, given that we're BME, if it can show that there's a reduction in cost, like better medical treatments that require people to spend less time in the hospital also. So there may be some interest in there. That they also get the interest, but they tend to be very practical when it comes to those things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on our environment here at RPI. Yeah, because I'm going to kind of analyze where we stand and what we decide, or at least one approach that we're pursuing. Obviously, it's not the only one, but it maybe gives people some idea. So at first, I kind of we did an analysis and saying, okay, here, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute is located in Troy, New York, which is part of the greater New York capital region, including Albany, Schenectady, Saratoga, and Troy. Yeah, and so we have a lot of universities here. Yeah, basically approximately a dozen institutions. But when I look around, well, we have a lot of universities. There's only really two that have biomedical or chemical engineering departments. Yeah, and no, 1 second, did I say two? There's only really one, and that's RPI. Okay, so that's where we come in there. We have several hospitals, including one that's actually a research hospital. Yeah. We have a number of larger pharma companies in this region. Like Regeneron does most of their production here. We have Curia Global. We have Novo Nordisk. Yeah, GE actually does some research in this as well. And that's all within like half an hour's drive. And if you look within 3 hours drive, then within Massachusetts and New Jersey, you literally have most of the global pharma players. And so we said, well, let's have a look at what we can do in the pharma realm, given that that has a strong industry concentration here. On top of that, Albany is the New York State capital, so we have a lot of government jobs here, and that includes a bunch of jobs actually in the healthcare sector. New York has what's called the Wadsworth Center, and that's like the state CDC. Okay, they have their own facility with their own labs, and they have internal funding programs as well. So clearly, this whole healthcare industry is of importance to this region. So what we then did, is saying, okay, you need to kind of, in order to get the state interested, you need a comprehensive approach. Okay, if it's just us at RPI making an argument and saying, look, we do all this cutting edge research and we produce a lot of graduates that people like to hire. Yeah, that's interesting, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. Yeah. So if you when you talk to like representatives from the states, they want to see that there is really a more holistic approach. Yeah. And like the first thing is they do want to know is that have you talked to the industry players in the region, which we have. The second argument is then, well, if I talk to a pharma company, they're going to hire 10 people with an associate's degree before they hire one person with a PhD. So where do you stand on this? Clearly, us as a R1 institution, we don't have any interest in offering associate degrees, but that means now we need to partner with other higher ed institutions in the region who can provide these other pieces of the puzzles. Okay? So we started an initiative talking to all the local community colleges, including the community colleges, and coming up with a plan. Well, can we offer like a workforce development program that offers everything from associate's degree at the community colleges, bachelor's degrees, some online degrees as well. That's now we have Rensselaer at Work here, which belongs to RPI, but is somewhat separate in that they don't have their own faculty, so the faculty provide the content for them to create this. But also MS program, and ultimately, the doctoral research is happening in everybody's lab. Okay. And
1 more minute, Jürgen.
This is my last slide. Thank you. All right. And the other thing is also then make use of existing institutions that you already have. Like in our case, we have manufacturing institutes. We are a Nimble partner, and we also a BioMade partner. And so this gives you more opportunities to reach out to industry and work with them and show that we have a significant body of work with our local partners. And in our case here, we picked biomanufacturing in particular for the pharma industry at least as the first hub that we want to push. And we would basically we're looking at using our resources at RPI and working with our local partners as well as industry to establish like a biomanufacturing hub, which goes all the way from small startups to providing workforce for the existing larger companies. And obviously, you have to work with local, state, and federal government to make this happen. Yeah. And as I said, this is not going to solve all the federal funding problems we have, but this is like one approach that we're looking at in one particular area. Now we have to see how we can use the similar approaches to branch out to other areas as well, so that we become a little less dependent on just federal funding dollars. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jürgen. And lastly, looks like Ayman, you're able to pull up your slides.
Yeah, I just give me one.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So today I just try to talk about how we integrate translational research and partnership with industry in bioengineering. And bioengineering at University of Louisville started in 2006. And at this time, the main issue at this time, the funding at the state of Kentucky started to decrease, especially funding the program and the research. At this time, we started to say this is a big problem, and later on nowadays, federal funding started to decrease. And at the beginning, when we started the program, running the bioengineering program was very expensive, especially our cell culture lab and the tissue engineering lab. So at this time, the university asked us to use lab fee. And this is one of the challenges that even if we are using the lab fee, still the running cost of this lab is too much, and we have limit for the lab fee. At this time, we start the same time we have Coulter Foundation start a new concept of translational research, and this is around 2005. Based on this, we started to thinking in why we didn't make the main focus right now for bioengineering to be translational research to help us to face the challenge in running the cost, and this will help us to make partnership with the industry, and the industry can play a major role in supporting our research and supporting our labs. Based on this, we start again to focus about translational research, and we started to hire the faculty who has knowledge and expert in translational research, and at the same time, we encourage them to start partnership with the industry. So in this case, at this time, we focus about Coulter Foundation to be one of our sponsors. And for industry partnership, we encourage the faculty to focus in SCBIR grant and STR grant. This will be another mechanism to help us to build the partnership with industry, and at the same time, it will increase our funding. And we started the translational research in the department, and we started to make some training opportunity I will discuss. But this is what we share with our students. Translational research start to focus about getting the idea from the lab and then make it in the market. Based on this,
I'm so sorry, but if you could switch the screens right now, we're seeing your next slide
yes.
notes.
So
just gotta go up to display settings and
so this is what we say here about we start about translational research, and we started to think now into building our program. And when we started in 2005, we have BS and the ME, and later on we start to have this degree MS and translational research in bioengineering, and we started to use the translational research is in the name of the program. And our goal now how to implement this is translational component in our program. So this is what we did. For co-op, we started to build our program. We asked there is mandatory 3 co-op, and this must be paid co-op in industry. And this has helped us to build a lot of partnership with industry, because now we have to hire some people to recruit our student and help in recruiting our student in the industry. This is 3 co-op, and the last co-op is the co-op before the student to graduate. So the last co-op in their BS will be the last semester. Based on this is help us to place, I can't say 100%, but I can say 95% of our undergraduate student in the industry, and some of them already able to secure job before their graduation. This is one advantage. Second advantage, the student when they graduate, they have almost a year of translational training in the industry. Third, this is help us. This is companies that they taking our co-op is to help us in the capstone project, and this is the next one. We started to make our capstone project. We start to make our capstone project to be supported by industry. So, and this is we started to make a business model with the industry and the to give them some right intellectual property, because this is one of the challenge when they started to work with the industry, who will own the intellectual property, and this is takes some time from us, but this is one of the challenge. But right now, 100% of our capstone project is sponsored by the industry. In the same time, some of our students mentioned they like to continue in medical school or medical field. We started the option too. We make it for capstone project. It's called the Blue Glass program. And this is 9 months for medical student to work in interdisciplinary team with bioengineering to solve real problem. So this is help us a lot to either to create partnership with the medical school, and this will start to be part of their clinical trial, industrial contract is there, or our student work with the industry, and the industry will support our capstone project, and this is help some of the financial burden in supporting the capstone project. And for the graduate program, the PhD, we call it translational research, and we make 3 tracks. If someone still do traditional bioengineering, we do it, and we create two tracks, one for clinical, second one for the student who like to start their own company and start or work in the industry, and they have to have translational research and the marketing experience. And the third track, we make it collaboration with the business school. For the training, this is what we did now. This is since we are pushing for this direction, we make 4 programs. I-Corp, this is a NSF program to support to make training for our student on the translational research, how they start from the idea, file disclosure, have a patent, and working with the investors. This is for the student. The same program we did it for the faculty, and this is because when we start with the student, we have another challenge is that some of the faculty has lack of experience in translational research. So this was the second one. Kinetic program, this also NIH federal program help us to help the student and the faculty to have some pilot data to encourage the investor and the industry to invest in their project. And the last one, prepare. This is a program from that we created here. Also is this federal supported program, which help our faculty and the student to travel to the main conference that support commercialization to build their own network. And this is some example. Since 2006, this is one of the companies that sponsor some of our technologies that has been developed. This is technology from my lab, which is called breast test. And this is a technology for early diagnosis for lung cancer. This is one of the company. I don't know. This is another technology that is licensed for using AI tool, generative AI, to convert to generate what's called virtual staining, and this is to reduce the cost of diagnosis in low income country. This is one of the technology. Also, this another technology that covered by CNN for using AI to fast and accurate program the microcontroller for spinal cord injury. This has been developed and also licensed. And this is the device, and this is how we program it, and this cover later on. And this is one of the last technologies that has been licensed and even got 510K approval for it for using medical imaging to make first analysis to the brain and show abnormal region. Later on, we will correlate this is abnormal region with the autism. And this is some also, this is not from my lab, this is from other lab for using DNA, some what's called target therapy for treating lung cancer. And this has been licensed, and there is two company in West Coast right now running to get FDA approval for this technology. This is something, again, I mentioned this was of the challenge in research and it built, and still we have another problem that my colleague mentioned is enrollment. And maybe later on we can share with you some of our initiative. Some of them is work, some of them doesn't work. So maybe you can, again, because this is another big problem right now we are facing is the enrollment, especially in the graduate program as well as undergraduate program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anand. That was fantastic. All right, so we have about 15 minutes for question and answers. There were a couple questions I kind of addressed right away. So there was a question about whether this is going to be recorded, and it is being recorded. We're gonna post it on the BMES website, so all BMES members should be able to access the webinar. There's also a question about what's going on in Congress. I'm not completely conversant on this, but I put in a link to an article from Science. So the Senate, my understanding, voted to increase the NIH budget rather than decrease it as the administration was suggesting. And there's similar things, perhaps, and for the NIH, and also I think the House is thinking similarly. For NSF, the Senate voted to maintain the NSF funding, and the House is also working on a subcommittee bill. So I think all those events are still ongoing. Please, anybody correct me if I have that incorrect, because even though I live in DC, I try not to pay attention to DC. So with that, let me send out a couple of questions. First, I think there was one for you, Jennifer, about the importance of using platforms like Teams and SharePoint. How kind of really did you get your faculty to buy in, and what number of faculty seem to be participating?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the adapting SharePoint was much easier for us. A few years ago, Steven's actually undergone changing the websites and how we house a lot of central documentation to whatever the old system was to going into SharePoint. So that really is a hub for all of us to deposit our important documents and share. And so if anyone wants to answer, that's what we keep pointing him to. And for the last 2 years, we just say, go look at SharePoint and this under this heading. So I think using that is now become sort of part of us in our daily operations. So I think that was a little easier for us. Using Teams is a little bit more tricky. I would say that so all of my faculty probably use SharePoints. For using Teams, particularly, are really mainly been adopted by the staff. They really seem to like the idea they can connect with somebody from within the department or with from other offices and ask quick questions and things like that. Our faculty are not as used to or open to using Teams yet, but I'm working on it.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. I don't know if Jürgen or Ayman want to add to that. Ayman, you can pull down your slides so we can see everybody. Yeah.
I don't have any comments on this particular one, given that that was really directed at Jennifer, and
Sure, absolutely.
it's not something that we have extensively focused on here. So,
well, we have a few students, I think, with us, and we had a question next from a rising senior thinking about a PhD program and wondered if there was any advice for this particular career path, given all the excitement and dynamic nature of federal funding, and wondered whether it would be best to investigate other opportunities before going to a graduate program. Maybe Jürgen, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that one. Look, I think pursuing a doctoral degree in biomedical engineering is still a great program. I don't think that has changed a whole lot. one of the things you're going to find is that, yes, there are challenges, but most of the challenges are really more what the departments and the faculty have to face. The students are really not as much affected by it, aside from some international students when it comes to visas. Okay, that one is out of our control. You will find that that many departments may admit a little fewer students, or maybe a bit more competitive to get in. But once you're in, I don't think you're going to see any major changes. And quite frankly, by the time when you graduate, and in a few years, the landscape's going to look very different anyway. And the reality is, industry is still trying to hire our students. That has not changed at all from last year to this. Okay, so there's demand for people with a doctoral degree in this field, and that's not going away. Okay, so I mean, if you want my opinion, no, if you're interested in pursuing a PhD, go for it. Okay, it's as good now as it was last year, or it will be next year. I personally do not see this changing at all. It's just the headaches we're talking about, they're more on our side, basically the department heads and the faculty, but they really shouldn't affect you in a major way.
Jennifer,
No,
Aina?
I completely agree. I think this is a great time to, pursue a higher education and particularly in PhD. I agree with that. I think the demand for PhD, whether in industry or in academia, they're still high. So I would say go for it. I mean, I think the bigger question is what area you want to get into, what school and what advisor you want to find. I think to me, those are more important questions because you want to follow your passion about the areas and study that you want to pursue. And to me, that's more a bigger question you should really explore right now.
Yes, I completely agree with you. This is like again, this is a good time to do it. This is my opinion, and but the most important is select what is your area because bioengineering is wide field.
I guess maybe I would add it may be more difficult to get in and get a funded program, funded project because of everything we just discussed. But if you do, you're kind of in great shape for a 5-year PhD because when you come out on the other side, I agree with what Jürgen said. It's not going to be completely changed, but I think the uncertainty that we kind of that's also a big factor with what we're all dealing right now. The uncertainty should be really, well, hopefully, hopefully will be resolved in 5 years or 5.5 years. So it could actually be a really nice spot to be in for the next bit of time. So we have another question about tuition. Has any of the universities you're at considered or implemented tuition increases to help offset the research funding increases? And if that has happened, how did the university or college convey this change in value proposition to prospective students? I'm guessing this is focusing more on undergraduate tuition than graduate, but any thoughts?
I can comment on this. I can share with you what we did here in Louisville. In Louisville, yes, for undergrad, especially as I told you, the run cost for a bioengineering is a little bit high. They make additional fee this year for the student who enrolled in engineering programs. This is to help us to run our undergraduate lab. But because the funding is not going down for even for graduate program, we decrease our tuition to encourage the student who like, especially for Master of Science. We treat all the students right now as in-state tuition. This is can encourage some student outside Kentucky to come, and we treat them like resident of Kentucky. So this is again, this is somewhat with it. We increase a little bit for undergrad, but for graduate, even we decrease it almost to the half because in-state tuition around 40% from out-state tuition to help in increasing the enrollment for graduate program here at Loop. Because one of the
What about from the privates?
Yeah, I mean, look, RPI is a private school, so we're unfortunately pretty expensive as it is. No, there's no, like our tuition increases are no different than they were in previous years. It's essentially cost of inflation. Multiple reasons for it. Number one is that we are on the more expensive side of things, and you don't want to push this further. The other thing is also that at some level, the university has to figure out where it gets its money from and where it spends it on. If there's a shortfall on the research side, we don't want to have our undergrads having to pay the burden for that. Yeah. I mean, there's always some subsidies, money going one way or another, but you don't want to make it more extreme than needed. So short answer from RPI, no, it's the same business as every year with regard to tuition.
How about it, Stevens?
Yeah, no, we're kind of with our PI, we're not increasing our tuition. It's just maybe just the annual inflations. And in fact, we were last year we were recognized as number 9th on the return on investment in the US world ranking. And so we're very proud of that. And so we really are not going to be increasing tuition.
Awesome. So we have another question, just wondering about how expanding potential opportunities with startup companies, how would that ultimately impact the bottom line for a BioE or BME department? Could maybe somebody comment on, those startups, they're wonderful, but are they really going to change the financial position of the department?
I can share you what we did because most of the faculties that we have, they have SBIR grant and STR grant. This is how it impacts the department. When the faculty are able to develop a technology and license it to his company or some other company, we got license fee. And the department get, we call it IP share. And really we get right now decent amount. The department every year make around 100K. This is just as a department part from the license fee because we take around the 20% from the IP license. This one second, most of the people who recruited in this company is our graduate student because these students are our undergrad or master of science or PhD and work with the faculty in this technology. So when they graduate, is the best place to work is to work in their company. So we find even it helps, and even some students they start their own company. So either we get the department to get license fee, this will help us. Second, creating opportunity either for co-op for our undergraduate student or as a job for our graduate student from either Master of Science or undergrad or PhD.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we have 2 more questions, so I'm just going to go quickly if you don't mind. Maybe Jürgen, could you maybe talk about any changes to promotion and tenure at RPI or that you've heard of in regard to the financial research?
Well, very early discussions. Okay, so nothing concrete yet. We're obviously all aware about the funding challenges that are there, and we know that they will affect the promotion and tenure cases. But until we have done a bit more benchmarking, yeah, it's hard to basically come up with concrete ideas. Like to give you one idea here, so our research this last fiscal year, yeah, which had 6 months of this uncertainty and 6 months under a more normal setting. I mean, our research expenditures were down 1%. So it was down a little bit, but not to the degree that you say, oh, we need to change policies. That being said, a lot of people have grants they got from earlier that they're spending on. So this may get more as we move on, and then we'll have to basically benchmark and make some decisions. It is being discussed at the highest level, so people are aware of it, but no recommendations from our side just yet.
Awesome. The last question, I'm not sure if I fully have it, but I think the question is that what about the status of current students? Are the funding and the funding security, how should we think about the current students, the current graduate students in a program? Are they going to be affected by it, or are they a little bit insulated? I don't know. Maybe Jennifer, if you want to try this last one.
I mean, that's a kind of bit of a tough question to answer. I mean, I think as a department, we try to do everything we can to protect our students. If, in my case, if a faculty lost the funding, we as a department try to find a way to cover their stipend and tuition, whether it's through TA-ships or other means. So I think, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of departments are the same way. We protect our students, particularly our PhD students, is really important to us. That's how we advance in our research and so forth. So we do everything we can to protect them.
Awesome. So with that, does anybody, any panelists have any last things we got maybe one more minute if they want to add? No? Well, with that, first of all, I'd like to thank our panelists for an outstanding presentation and short discussion afterwards. Hopefully it's been informative to the folks who joined us. It was informative to me. I learned a lot. I also want to, two quick announcements. John Falcione from BMES is reminding us that at the BMES annual meeting, there's going to be a special keynote session on rethinking the grant model and how there might be new research funding opportunities and funding models for academic departments. So that's at the BMES meeting in San Diego this fall. And then lastly, as I had mentioned at the beginning, we're trying this new COC webinar series. We're going to have one more in 2 weeks on August 21st at the same time. We'll have 3 more leaders in the field, department chairs, and they'll be talking about best practices in leading BioE and BME departments. So with that, maybe I'll pass it over to Caitlin to say goodbye for us.
Yep, this concludes our webinar. Thank you for joining us. I'd also like to remind everyone that this webinar is being recorded for your convenience and will be available to BMES members and non-members who registered for the event on our website, and you will be notified via email when the materials are posted. To learn more about upcoming BMES activities and events, you can visit bmes.org. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.